I can still remember developing my first roll of Ilford FP4. Good old Stan told me what I needed and how to do it. I couldn't believe it worked. I found it really easy, which it is, and I still have those negatives filed away. That's the beauty with film photography. You get something at the end for all your efforts, the negative. Not only is it rewarding, you get to use old cameras like this Yashica MAT124G TLR camera. TLR meaning twins lens reflex, which basically means I look through the viewfinder and compose my scene through this lens, and when I press the fire button the lens opens and closes and exposes the film on this lens. Digital photography is fantastic, and without it I'd be lost, but film photography is my playground where I can dabble with old cameras, chemicals and photographic film. And inside this camera is an exposed roll of Ilford Delta 100, a beautiful black and white film which I shot at one of my favourite places. This is Brading Down. It's full of wildlife. I like it up here. It's peaceful, quiet, and it also has my favourite tree that I often photograph. You've probably seen it in my videos. But it doesn't get boring to me. The trees look the same, but the background always changes. And because I'm shooting film, I can try different old cameras and films and see how it turns out. And just for my 6x9 negative collection, I've also brought with me the FUJI GSW690. It looks massive, but it's not very heavy. It just has a beautiful lens. And it's not been up here with me before. This is its first time. And I've loaded some expired APX100 inside the camera. I'll only get 8 photographs from it, but that's more than enough for up here today. So that's what I've been shooting, and I've yet to see what the negatives look like. And the exciting part is developing the film and seeing how they look. I'll take you through my developing process using Zone Imaging's 510 PYRO developer, and if I have a negative that I like, I'll take you in the darkroom and we'll make a print and get it framed. So I'm going to develop one of the films now. You can see it sitting there, the Ilford Delta 100. I need to get that on that spiral and then get that spiral in the tank. Obviously I have to do that in complete darkness, otherwise I'll completely ruin the film. But that's all the kit I need over there to develop this film in 510 PYRO. You can see the 510 PYRO at the back there. I've got my fixer, which is an alkaline fixer, at the back in the yellow jar. And I've got 3 jugs. They're both at the back of fresh water, and this jug here is 600 millilitres of water, and that's where my pyros are going to go. And I've also got a glove over there as well, because this stuff can stain your fingers, so I'd recommend wearing gloves with this stuff. And I've also got my mobile phone, that's my timer. And I've got some kitchen towel up there, just in case I make any spillages, and a thermometer sitting in that jug, because I need to measure the temperature of my developer before it goes in the tank. And this is a 510 PYRO that I use from Zone Imaging's, and this stuff, I like using this with Delta 100, especially for my scapes. It's a super fine grain developer, and it delivers just bags of tonality as well on the negatives. I've been using this for a couple of years now, maybe 3, and I've really got to enjoy it. So that's what I'm using, the 510 PYRO. And you'll notice there is a little tiny measuring syringe as well. I'll be using that, and the good thing about this stuff is you use minimal developer. It's quite a high diluted developer, so I'm only going to be using 6 millilitres of this stuff for this development. And these are just Patterson tanks that I'm using. They do leak a little tiny bit, but they were cheap as chips. I think I got them out of an old school years ago, and I've been using them ever since. These plastic spirals sometimes wear out, so I have to get new spirals every maybe once in a blue moon. But that's the developing tank that I'm using. There's plenty of them online you can get pretty cheap. There's the film. And that's my fresh water there for me development. I've got 600 millilitres in there. That's way enough to cover that whole spiral when it goes inside the tank. I like it to cover quite a bit, because just in case that spiral lifts up inside the tank and it gets uneven development, I don't want that. So I always use 600, which means 6 millilitres of pyro, 600 millilitres of water, and that is set to exactly 20 degrees. That's where I want it. But the first thing I've got to do is turn all the lights out and get this film onto this reel and get it put into this tank, put the top on, and then I can start developing. So let's do that right now with a click of the fingers. And the lights are back on and the film is now safely inside the tank. So the first thing I'm going to do is pre-wash my film. I don't need to do this. I generally don't do this. In fact, only when I'm using PYRO for this sort of development, which is a semi-stand development. So I'm just going to pre-wash the film, get it to temperature of the water, and I don't know, get rid of it. Maybe any crap that's sitting inside the tank there shouldn't be, or any dyes that might come off the film and end up in my fixer at the end of it all from the film. I don't think none of that matters, to be honest with you, but I'm just giving it a pre-wash, get the film soaked before I get the PYRO in there. Right, get the old rubber glove on, because I don't want this stuff on my hands. Notice I haven't got one on the other hand. I can only find one rubber glove. I've lost the other one. In fact, the other one broke. So I need 6 millilitres. I've only got a 5 millilitre tube, so we'll get 5 out of this and then add one more, which will be 6. It's very gloopy, this stuff. And one more, so that's 6 millilitres of PYRO. Give it a good old stir. Some people get a bit scared when I use my thermometer to stir, but it hasn't broken in, God knows, 10 years I've had this thermometer. Still works. And this PYRO developer's got a staining property on it as well, so your negatives kind of look a little bit sepia toned, if you like. It's got like a brown stain to it. So basically the stain helps with the shadow detail and highlight separation too when you're making prints in a darkroom, and also it protects the film over time, so it's like putting a magic cloak over the film. I'm sure there's more of a scientific explanation, but mostly when I'm semi-standing with this developer I always get good detail on the negative, and it makes it a little bit more robust for scratching, although I've never actually witnessed any of that before. Scratching, I'm sure your film will still scratch if you're using PYRO, if you mishandle it. So I've got to develop this. This is a semi-stand development, so I've got to develop this for 14.5 minutes. Inversions for the first minute, and then after 10 minutes, one more inversion, just one. And then that will be done. After 14.5 minutes, I can dump out the PYRO. I won't be stopping with stop bath, that will wash away the stain, so it has to be water and then an alkaline fixer. So if you use Ilford Rapid Fix or whatever, that's going to wash the stain away as well. So it has to be an alkaline fixer. In goes the developer, and I'll start the timer once I put the lid on. Lid goes on, get the air out, timer's on. So for a minute I've got to do this. Nothing crazy, just gentle inversions. And it's real simple, black and white film developing. I find PYRO very simple to use, the same as D23 that I use as well, Rodnol. Semi-stand or stand development is easy as well, and it will preserve your highlights a little bit better. It should exhaust itself in the highlight areas, stopping your highlights blowing out on your film. This will be great for me because I've got sky on my film. And clouds, so hopefully this semi-stand will stop any overdevelopment of the highlights. That's what I'm hoping, and the stain also helps with that as well. That'll do. Right, yeah, very sharp developer, full tonal range coming out of the film that I found as well, and very fine grain, which is great for my escapes because I don't want to see grain in the sky once I start making a print. In a little while, once this is done, there's no point in me showing you this now because I'm going to let it stand for another 10 minutes. I'm going to do one more inversion, let it stand again, and I'm going to wash the film with water, or stop the film with water, and then I'm going to fix the film, and then once that's done, give it a good thorough wash, let them dry, then we'll come back in the darkroom and we'll have a look at the negatives, see how they look, and I'll show you guys how I make a darkroom print in the darkroom. So while that's all developing, I'll give some of you guys that are relatively new to the channel, if you haven't seen my darkroom before, I'll give you a quick tour of my darkroom. It's massive, it's like a TARDIS in here. Not massive shed, it's quite a small shed really. This is my darkroom, this is where I stand when I'm normally talking to you guys, this is where I'll be later on. That's my enlarger there, Durst M605, I've had that for years, it serves me really well. There's the baseboard, a couple of lenses for the vlogging that I'm doing at the moment. Negative carriers there. Got a light box here for looking at my negatives. These are GVM video lights that I use, and for my safe lights, LEDs, they go red. Over here I've got a simple washing line with pegs, little rack there for drying my prints. There's a desk down there, table that I can write stuff with and vlog and show you guys. There's a radiator down there for the winter time. There's my contrast filters for my enlarger, all mishmashed for you OCD people. I'm sorry if that's giving you a fright. You notice I've got no timer or nothing in here. It all comes out of the shed when I'm not making any prints. That's a sink. I've got no running water in this darkroom. I have to use the outside tap and a hose to feed it through these taps, but that works fine for me. And what time are we at? 8 minutes. I've got to watch that because I've got to do one more inversion in a second. But yeah, this is my darkroom and it's in a shed. I've got all this plastic underneath. There's more insulation as well, just to try and stop the damp out. But the amount of rain that we've had over the last 6-7 months in the UK, it started to get a little bit damp, and I'm not very nice in here, so I had to get everything out, give it a good clean up. Now the warmer weather's coming, hopefully I can get in here more and make some nice prints and have some nice time with myself in the darkroom. The power's run from indoors through a cable into the shed, so that's pretty much my darkroom. Real simple setup, anyone can do if they've got a little bit of room in their garden for a shed. So we're just coming up to the 10-minute mark now. Give it one more inversion and just get all that developer refreshed for the last 5 minutes. Little tap to stop any air bubbles. See, now this is starting to stain the cloth already, this PYRO. I'll show you when it comes out what it looks like. It will be like a browny vinegary colour, mixed possibly with still some of the anti-elation dye on that film. So we're coming up to the last few seconds now. I need to empty the developer into this jug, and this is a part where you're only hoping that everything's gone right. You know, you keep your fingers crossed. Stop that. Yeah, just keep your fingers crossed and hopefully, yeah, look how brown that is. Hopefully your negatives have come out nice. So we need to get that stopped now. There's all the PYRO out, put that to one side. So we're just going to stop it with water. But yeah, sometimes if you've got your cameras a little bit up the duff maybe, or maybe you've done a development wrong, your negatives can come out not looking like what you thought they might do. But I'd say probably 8, wishful thinking 9 times out of 10 my negatives come out okay, printable at least, or scannable. I haven't had much trouble with this 510 PYRO over the times that I've been using it, and what troubles I have had in the past have been user error. But it's a real easy developer to use, as are most developers. You've got the instructions there. As long as you follow the instructions, you can't go wrong. Anything else, it could be down to the water that you're using, or it could be problems with your camera. You know, we all get these little teething problems from time to time with our films, and then it's an investigative problem trying to find out what went wrong. Hopefully this will come out all right. Okay, that should be fine. And now we're getting on with fixing the film, and I'm going to give this Delta 6 minutes of fixing time. That should be enough. In goes the fixer, and like I said, this is alkaline fixer. Fill that right up. Here you go. And then I'll just invert this now for about 30 seconds, and then on the minute, every minute, just another 5 inversions right to the end, and then I'll get the film washed and I'll show you guys the results. So the fixing's all done, or at least it should be now. So all I need to do is wash the film. Let's put the fixer, you can see the colour of the fixer, still got that stain going on, so that PYRO, just be careful with it. It's a bit stainy. And I can pour the fixer back, turn that off. I can pour the fixer back in my bottle and use for my next film development, and many more after that until that gets exhausted. And then just use fresh water to wash the film. So what I often do is, this is just fresh water, so I'll just do this for 30 seconds and then I'll do another one for 1 minute, and that should get most of it off, and then I'll rinse it under the tap for a final wash after that. So now the film's all washed, all I need to do is a final rinse, which is my homemade distilled water or deionised water that I use, and a little tiny bit of washing up detergent just to rinse the film, and that stuff works fine for me. And then I'll get this hung out to dry and see how it looks. And here comes the moment of truth. There's a couple there that I took up the high street, but my shots from the downs look nice after metering. I don't know how it looks on the camera there, because I've got no backlight on it, but they're looking quite nice. In fact, if I put something white behind, you might be able to see there. There you go. So there's bags of tonality in there that I can easily make nice prints from. I've got all the detail that I need. Let's let them dry, and then we'll get them underneath the enlarger and see how they print. So the negatives have come out looking really nice after developing. These are the Yashica MAT124G negatives. You can see them there. And these are from that 6x9 camera as well. These are absolutely massive. Look at the difference in size between 6.9 and 6.6. These ones I'll be contact printing and putting into a scrapbook with all my other 6.9 negatives. These are the ones that I'm going to make a print of in the darkroom. And if you're wondering why the sky is more dense on these than these ones, on these ones I was using a yellow filter and sometimes a red filter as well. So I'm back in the darkroom now, and I'm pleased to say that the negatives are looking really nice. They're not too thin, they're not too dense, they're just about right for me to work in the darkroom with. So I'm going to do some tests first of all before I put a piece of paper under the enlarger and make a final print. I have to do some tests just to see where the contrast is sitting, if I need to use contrast filters, if I need to do any dodging and burning, just stuff like that before I make a final print. So stick around and I'll show you what I do in the darkroom to make one of these negatives on paper. And these are my dodge tools. This is what I use to basically stop light from the enlarger hitting certain parts of the print. If you use Photoshop, you know what these are about, dodging and burning. In fact, that is a typical burn tool that I would use in the darkroom, just a hole and a piece of card, and that will go underneath the enlarger lens, and I'll be able to pinpoint light onto the paper wherever I want to make it darker. And this is the timer that I use for my enlarger. This gives me the time for the light bulb to come on and off. I'm not going to go into big detail with that. It's an f-stop timer, but that's what I use in the darkroom. And these are the contrast filters as well. Again, going back into Photoshop, if you've got the slider for the contrast, these pretty much do the same. They do the same thing. These control the contrast of the print. So contrast 5 is a high contrast filter. Contrast 0 is a low contrast filter. And I've got all the others in between. And because my negatives are square, I'm using a square easel. I get these from Bit by Bit Photo out in Texas, a guy called Tim. And these are fantastic for small prints that I'm doing in the darkroom today. So this is a square easel here that I'm going to be using because these are going to be square. And the paper I'm using is Kentmere VC Select. That's a glossy paper, 10 by 8. So nice manageable prints in the darkroom for this session. That's a focus finder as well, what I'll be using to try and find the grain. I don't think I'm going to find any, but that will give me my focusing on the baseboard. And this is the enlarger itself, so I'll put the negative in there, slide it underneath the light bulb, which is inside. The light passes through these bellows, through a lens, which is underneath, which is similar to your camera lens with apertures and stuff. And then it shines it onto the baseboard here, onto the paper. And these are the trays for the paper to be developed, stopped and fixed. So this is my developer. I'm using Fotospeed PD5 developer. That goes in there. And these are all normal, same temperature, 20 degrees or room temperature. Same as the film developer really. Stop bath as well. Notice I'm using stop bath this time. And the fixer as well. This is a different fixer. I don't use the same fix for my film and my printing, so you can see it's nice and clean. This is a fixer as well. And these bottles are just cheap bleach bottles that I get from the store. Chuck them down the toilet, clean the toilet out, and then rewash these and use them for my chemicals. Pretty cheap. What's that, 50p a bottle? And they're good storage bottles. So I've got two negatives that I've chose here. These two here, this one and this one. This one was just the yellow filter, and this one was with a red filter. You can see the difference. The red filter's got more thinner sky than the yellow filter. I wouldn't mind printing the red one actually to get that sky nice and dark, but there's a car just coming to the view on the left middle third there, so I'm going to go for this one, and if I need to I can still burn the sky if I want to. So this is a negative that I'm going to work with. First of all, I need to do some tests just to see how long it's going to take me, or how many seconds it's going to take for a final print to be exposed on the paper. And I'll take the negative and put it in my carrier like so, stick it under the enlarger, get a focus, and then start doing some tests. So there's a negative already sitting there. It's coming through the lens onto the baseboard. Just need to focus up, and then I'll use my focus finder to get even closer. So I don't like wasting paper if I don't need to. I always use small strips to do my tests, but I need to put a small strip of paper right across between the grass and the start of the sky there, and that's where I'm going to start doing increments of seconds and just see how long it takes to build up the density on the paper to where I like it, and that will give me some indication of where I need to go when I make a final print. So I can make my test now with a 2.5 grade filter. Everything's ready to go. The paper's placed there. This is the timer, and I'm going to do 7 increments along this test strip, all different times. So let's let the timer do its thing. And then I'll start covering parts of that piece of paper. Sometimes I don't have to do this if I've got a hunch, but most of the times it's best to. So you can see I'm just covering up all the rest of the paper as I go along. So obviously the last piece that I do at the end there will have the most time on it. That will be the darkest part. Okay, we'll develop that and see how it looks. And in it goes. You can see it's only a small piece of paper that I'm using for this test. And as that starts developing, you'll see it go from light to dark. There it comes through now. And then I'll stop the development and then fix the paper. Then it will be no more sensitive to light, and I can turn the lights on and have a look at my test strip. It's gone quite dark at one end actually, but that's okay. I've got a lighter end, and I want to make sure it's in here, you know, for a good 1.5, maybe 2 minutes, making sure all them blacks reach their maximum black. Once, you know, if I could leave this in here for 2 days and all it'd do is just start peeling the paper off, it won't get any darker. The exposure's already done, so it won't get any more dense. I can leave it in there as long as I like, but 1.5, 2 minutes is enough in this developer with this paper. And this is the test print here. It might look different on your TV screen or whatever you're watching this on than I'm seeing here at the moment. So this is my base time of 10 seconds is what I started on. So 10 seconds here, if I come 1/3 of a stop down, 7.9 seconds, that still looks a bit dark. 6.3 seconds I think looks about right for me, looking at it as I am here in the darkroom. Obviously 20 seconds is way too dark. So I'm going to do another test strip at 6.3 seconds and see how that looks. So I'll just throw 2 more strips underneath the enlarger. This time I'm going right across from the ground up towards the sky, past the tree, so I can see what's going on. That was, what did we say, 6.3 seconds there, which is the one I thought it was. And then I did another one at 5 seconds, and you can see 5 seconds, just that, you know, 1.3 seconds. Look at the difference between the sky. That's a bit too dark. This one looks a bit more natural, and the ground as well, the grass, doesn't look as dark. So but I just need to know if I need to, you know, get a little bit more light on the grass, or maybe a little bit darker in the sky. I don't know yet until I've played around a bit more. So rather than waste little tiny test strips trying to fiddle about, I've decided to put a whole 10x8 sheet underneath, make a print, and then from that I can see the whole picture and see where I need to go. So 5 seconds with that, there it goes, and we'll develop that, and hopefully I'll be able to see a little bit more into the scene and what I need to do. and it goes into the developer. So it's still, all the years I've been in the darkroom making prints, it still amazes me when I watch these images come through on the paper. It's I can remember as a kid always fascinated in it when I used to see it on the TV, but I never did it at school. They did have photographic studios at school and darkrooms when I was there back in the 80s, but you know, I just wasn't. I was more into football. But looking back, I wish I'd gone into a darkroom. I may well have done, I can't remember. But this is looking really nice. And I'll tell you another thing about that Yashica MAT124G. That lens it's got is absolutely tack sharp. I'm not really one for fussing too much about sharpness, but you know, when you see an old camera like that produce such a sharp image, it does amaze you. This is coming out really cool actually. I thought I needed more there's a fly. I thought I needed more clouds in the sky, but I don't think I do. Okay, let's get that stopped and fixed and we'll have a look. And that looks tickety-boo. And that's the first print that's come off, and it absolutely looks really nice. I don't even have to clean the neg. There's no marks or anything on it, so it's come out really well. It's unusual that happens for a sky anyway. Usually you get dust particles and stuff going on. There might be a couple of little very minute ones, but I'm not going to worry about that at all. You can't see it unless you get right up close to the print, but that looks really nice. I'm happy with the way the grass is here. I've got some highlight going on here. Up the top here, the sky is dark where that yellow filter's just made a little bit of separation between the clouds and the sky, and you can see all these lovely sky here. I think if I did have more clouds up there, I don't think it would have looked as nice. I like also the way that the tree is separated between the sky behind it, so the tree's not sort of, you know, blending into the darker part at the top. So I was really happy with the negatives that I come back with in the darkroom. All I needed to do was put a 2.5 grade filter under the enlarger and make a print straight off. There was no dodging, burning needed to be done. It was all on the negative, so I was really happy with what happened there. I made an extra 3 prints, guys, of that photograph. So if you want to support the channel and buy one of those prints off me, they'll be on my Etsy page. I'll put a link in the description. They're all drying out at the moment. And I also then went off and made contact prints from the 6x9 negatives, which you can see here. I've got one of the contact print here from the 6x9 negatives. That's pretty easy to do in the darkroom as well. And what I do with these, I just cut these out, put them in my scrapbook of 6x9 photographs that I've got. And if I ever want to make any enlargements, I can from the 6x9. Not on this enlarger though. That one doesn't do 6x9. I have to set up another enlarger in here, but keep the negatives to one side if I ever do want to make an enlargement of those negatives. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Massive thanks to all the guys that support the channel and all the Patrons and YouTube members as well. I really do appreciate your support, guys, with helping me do what I do. Thanks a lot for all the guys that regularly comment on the channel and give me inspiration as much as I'm giving them inspiration as well. I really appreciate it. And thanks to you guys for subscribing, liking all my videos and watching the content. I really do appreciate your support, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Happy shooting.